Hey there folks and welcome to this video. This one here is a general note for those of you unaware what that content is in this channel. It's where I start off the week by talking about the week ahead, look a bit further back and talk about a topic that's on my mind. You find this week's one timestamped in the description below. And let's start off by talking about the week ahead. Hopefully gonna get a recap done for F1 testing. Might do my Dakar recap because now it's 2 months overdue. In addition to that, got some streaming stuff. Got ACC at Monza. Got NIS Atlanta, I think. It's somewhere that I think has a rallycross track. And got Sebring. Yes, Sebring 6 hours. Don't know if that's in a P1 or a P2 yet. Also then got... What else? There are some other little bits and pieces. BUSR Rally might do some RSRBR as well. Yeah, that's really my plans. In terms of looking back for the past week, I've had a lot of fun doing content, and I'm glad that people have been enjoying it as well, because it's awesome to have that. Especially people going along and watching the live streams. It really makes my day having people that I can enjoy being in chat with, and that's a lot of fun. I think the standout moment for me in terms of this channel last week came when a friend of mine messaged me saying that for one of his exams, he was looking at a case study and he was given 2 resources to look at, and both of them were my videos, which he was a bit like, hang on, I know this guy. But for me, it was like when I started this stuff off 7 years ago, my videos got played in the classrooms at school, but it was because people were making fun of me. And now my videos are being used as almost an educational material, which I've got to say that's pretty awesome. Like, in the midst of so many different things that have been amazing that have happened to this channel, the kinds of people who've come into this community and the kind of way that we've grown, this is one of the things that really stands out. But yeah, without further ado, let's get on to talking about my topic for this week. Now, one of the things I'm going to say right away is the title for this video is deliberately provocative. In light of everything surrounding the death of Sarah Everard and developments since then, I want to talk about 2 particular aspects of what's happened since. One is like the vigil and the mourning of her, and the other is well, the thing that's in the title, the not all men thing. Let's start off by talking about the response to her death, with the Metropolitan police officer who works on special sites and is like in charge of looking after people such as MPs being charged with a murder. And then with a vigil, a peaceful vigil, where the photos that emerge from it are policemen, and it is men, overpowering women, forcing women to the ground, while women are screaming. Like, the reason why a police force exists, like an army exists, is the state's monopoly on violence. That's some political theory. Like, those kinds of organisations are supposed to be a state's monopoly on violence. That's something that I learned during my degree for history, politics, and international relations. Just something that is considered across all different realms of academia. But when we're talking about a Met police officer standing accused of murdering someone, at said person's vigil, at the place where she went missing, having photos of policemen holding women down, that doesn't look good. Not at all. I know there are people calling on Cressida Dick to resign, or Priti Patel, or even Boris Johnson. All I'll say is they're probably not going to, and they're probably not going to sack any of them either. And I can tell you why. Because all of them have overseen much more scandalous things that they're not gone for yet. All three of them. And, I mean, you could just look at their responses to Black Lives Matter activism last year. I think one of the things that arises from talking about this response is that honestly raises more of a conversation about the role of people within the police. The fact that he has been injuring himself so much, this is somebody who, it's not just this is the guy who's been caught or anything. There's something else to this as to why he's constantly doing that. But furthermore, on top of that, this isn't an isolated incident. Seeing so many young women and girls just vanishing, and it's not just young girls, it's young people generally, and people generally, just going missing and then winding up dead. At the very least in this instance, we're getting closer and closer to some kind of closure. In a lot of places, we don't even get relatively close to that. But let's move on from there to the not all men thing. And I don't get why this exists, but I also understand the mentality that causes it. I think I owe almost a response to this, because this channel is heavily weighted towards a male audience, as it typically is, being more motorsporty and sim racing. That just generally tends to be a more exclusive environment. People who are not male identifying don't tend to show as keen an interest in this kind of stuff. And that's that. But this not all men thing, why do you have to make it about you? Because a lot of the not all men response has been because of the figures saying that 97% of women say they've been sexually harassed, abused, or worse. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's at the hands of a man. That's the first presumption. Is that a lot of men presume that that's immediately talking about men. It's not. Secondly, they presume it's not talking about men being assaulted. And that's a statistic in particular to do with people who identify as a woman. It's not designed to talk about men. So don't get all offended and go, oh, not all men. Because also there are other factors into this, and I'm sorry that for a lot of these men it's because they've got a very fragile kind of image of themselves, but there may be some way, and I'm not going to say every man is responsible or anything like that, because that's just unhelpful to the discussion and completely belligerent. But it's helpful for you to consider your role in all of this. I mean, you could be the best male ally to other people that you can, and you're still going to find yourself at some point thinking that you've messed up, that you're complicit in something. I know that because I have. I know so many people who've been through so many horrible things, and I've sometimes been thinking I should have done something. And probably should have. But that's not a kind of thing of, oh, all men are abusers or anything like that. And the thing is, a lot of abusers will take the mentality that, oh, I'm not an abuser. Because that's how they do it, because they have to justify their own actions. That doesn't mean that you listening right now who might have just gotten offended by that and thinking that I'm accusing you of being an abuser. I'm not accusing you of that. But we need to bear in mind our own image, because I don't think I'm threatening. Look, I'm what? 180 centimeters, just shy of that, and I weigh 87 kilo, and my muscle is basically non-existent. This is all flab, look. But in the right setting, well, the wrong setting, I guess, and wearing a particular kind of outfit, I could come across threatening. Heck, doesn't necessarily need either of those. And that's something we need to bear in mind. And it's something that I find when I'm talking about a lot of things to do with sexism or misogyny. For a lot of us as men, we don't have to actively consider that we exist as men. For us, we feel like this is just the way life is. Because for a lot of us, we're not told. Then we have to dress a certain way, look a certain way, always text, have a spare pair of shoes so we might need to run, wear this particular kind of clothing, maybe have a full bladder in case somebody decides to try and take advantage of you. Those are things that we aren't trained to do. For a lot of white cis men, they don't have to think. You don't have to think about whether or not we're going to be stopped or profiled. That's something else we don't need to bear in mind. And that is the privilege. That's a privilege that you feel like you might not have, but you don't understand what it's like not to have it, because I don't understand what it's like not to have it. The only times that I've felt discrimination outside of homophobia were when I couldn't speak a language in the country I was in. And even then, because people didn't react until they found out I couldn't speak the language. And one element in a club where someone thought that I was a woman, and it was because I had long hair and I'd shaven, and it was a poorly lit club, and yeah, I mean, world's a horrible place, but I've not experienced anywhere near the kinds of discrimination or hatred or concerns or worries that other people might have, and I bear that in mind. And I think a lot of this not all men crowd, I think they really need to too. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you around.